the fact that she gave me permission to go ahead with practicing my eating disorder, I was like, well, we're going to get along great. This is going to be, because, remember in the beginning, I'm not really thinking I'm going to get better. And I was like, oh, if this gets me a little better, then, so, but as you can imagine, over time, I stuck with her and stuck with it. I finally, that took, probably 4 or 5 months, but where I got to a point where I would see the blue dot. And of course I was sitting down, and now I was meditating for 20 minutes, like that, the first time I did, I'd be like, pain here, binge, I wouldn't even sit down. She told me I wouldn't even do that. But we got to where I would be able to sit down on the kitchen floor and meditate for a pretty long period of time, identify all sorts of things that were going on in my body, breathe through them, move them out. And I would open my eyes, and then suddenly one day I thought, I don't think I'm going to binge.
On the Healthy Human Revolution podcast, Dr. Lori Marbas interviews nutrition and lifestyle medicine experts and extraordinary guests whose informative and inspiring stories will empower you with the knowledge to transform your life and health.
I'm Dr. Lori Marbas, and I'm so honored to welcome the amazing Dotsie Bausch. How are you today?
I'm awesome. As good as we can be in quarantine, right?
Right. Exactly. It is a challenge, but it's a great time to connect with others. And, you have such an incredible and I think uplifting and inspiring story, and it's so deep and rich. And I really want to do justice with it today. So could you maybe, share with us from your humble beginnings in Kentucky and how you ended up as a runway model in New York and all the challenges that came along with it?
Woo! Okay. In 90 seconds or less, right? Like, how fast could you? Kentucky. Kentucky. Grew up with Kentucky Fried Chicken, and the whole bit, and the Derby, and grew up riding horses, because that's what you have to do when you grow up in Kentucky. I was competitive in saddlebred horseback riding, so I grew up with a really competitive spirit and competitive nature. But I would say not really. I didn't grow up an athlete, because to me the horse is the athlete in that in that deal right there. But had a really, really wonderful, like, middle class upbringing. Fantastic parents, super supportive mom that always said I could do anything I set my heart to, and I believed her. And so grew up there, and then went to I was ready to get out of Kentucky, like pretty much by the time I was 10, but my parents wouldn't let me. So I left Louisville for college at Villanova University in Philadelphia. Just wanted to, get to a bigger city and kind of experience the Northeast. And so went to school there. And towards the end of that, around my junior year, so towards the end of my time there, when I was working in the drive-thru at McDonald's, which is a little shocking considering what I'm involved with and what I do now, but that was part of my past. I was doing an internship in news. I really thought that I wanted to be a hard news reporter. I mean, it was a dream that I'd had since a long time, and I'd majored in journalism at Villanova. And I just wanted so badly to just be on the beat, like bring the truth to the people and just be out there and, driving for the really fantastic, interesting stories that people had to tell and things that happened in people's lives. And I did an internship and realized over the course of probably about 3 or 4 months that the news is not exactly what we wish that it was. It's not Walter Cronkite era anymore. And the news is very skewed, and behind closed doors is big business and government. And there were so many extraordinary stories that were on the docket. And then the next thing I knew, they were just missing. And I was just an intern, so I wasn't on the inner meetings of the hows and the whys. I just knew they would just evaporate. So I realized, oh man, this isn't what I thought it was. And now I've majored in this and I'm nearing graduation and I don't know what in the world I'm going to do. And so I started kind of just out of really no particular reason whatsoever, but I started controlling my food intake. I didn't really notice what I was doing. I didn't consciously think about what I was doing. It was really quite random and just sort of haphazard. I know that I was so desperate to find some kind of control in my life because I just had lost what I thought I thought I had it all figured out. So I started controlling my food intake, and it just became a beast that then I had no control over. And it spiraled into a really intense and overwhelming eating disorder known as anorexia, and almost took my life. So that was something that is definitely a part of my story now. There's so much that I learned in the recovery from that, in the deep sea of misery that I was in, and the lifting up out of that is a part of who I am today, and learned from it. I wouldn't change it, but it was an MFer that I just kind of, it caught me off guard. It wasn't like everyone I think thinks from the outside that doesn't understand eating disorders, like I'm on this drive to become thin, right? I mean, I think that's typical, just stop eating because you want to look a certain way. And it had absolutely nothing to do with the outside, perception of how the world saw me and the size of my body. It did get, the sickness started going in that direction where I had this desire to get so small that I became, basically I wanted to disappear. So I would just become where people wouldn't see me anymore. I didn't want to be seen anymore. But I think that was more emotional really than physical, me wanting to disappear.
Right.
In all ways and in all aspects. So, I'll stop rambling and let you go.
I think there's just so much there to unpack, right? Because as a female and being similar ages, I'm older than you a bit, but when you look back and you do look for avenues of control, and food is the one thing that a lot of my patients that I work with, it's either they're eating it to feel better, it's the one thing they can do to feel better, or they stop eating because of various reasons. So what was the moment that actually switched for you to like, this is really serious and I need to get help? I mean, what was that moment of light for you?
There were a lot of, I had what I call like half rock bottoms, and then what everyone I think would have considered a rock bottom, which was a suicide attempt running on the 76 freeway in the middle of the night. And that was dark, but I was so sick at that period of time that I had picked up a pretty solid cocaine habit by that point, that I just wasn't really cognizant of what had just happened. My real rock bottom was when I'm 20, whatever you are at that 22 at that time. And my mom came to Philadelphia for an intervention, that my parents tried multiple sort of intervention-esque type of things, but they didn't really have any control, right? Because I was over 18. So my mom came for an intervention, and it didn't go well with the therapist that she had found that, because I went through a ton of therapists before I really had the one that took me through saving my life. But I was so sick and so furious that my mom was interfering in this disorder that I was heavily practicing. I wasn't done with it yet. Like I wasn't ready to say goodbye to anorexia. It was like my best friend and worst enemy. And I told my mom I was taking her, she had to leave. I was taking her back to the airport. So she's like, okay, she's not going to make me have her stay there. And I took her to the Philadelphia airport and screeched up onto the sidewalk. We hit the curb, and it was, it was pretty dangerous, and then came back down, and I leaned over from the driver's seat, opened the door, and threw my 90-pound mother out of the car. And she fell and, on the sidewalk of the Philadelphia airport. And that was probably that was more rock bottom for me, because I drove away and pretty immediately was like, what have you done? Right. What did you just do? There was no other reason that she made that trip but to help. Right. I knew I was sick. I had gotten to the point where I was like aware of it, but I just wasn't ready to let go.
Right.
So that was more rock bottom. So long story short, took a while after that for me to really sort of seek help, but I did find someone that I really connected with, and we started on the healing journey, and it was therapy. It was 3-4 times a week there in the beginning. And we dove in pretty hard. And when I first started with her, I remember thinking to myself that I thought there was absolutely no possible way that I would actually get better. I thought maybe there was a way I could get a little bit better, because I was really, 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 really skinny by that point. But I didn't think I would ever really get better. So it wasn't like I was in it to win it, like I'm going to get better. But I remember having that feeling of, I have to try for my mom and my dad and my sister, because they were so supportive. And I had the feelings that if I perish from this, or if I try to commit suicide again, and it works, I at least want them to know that I tried. I have to try. It just was this like revelation, that I thought was a revelation, that I just have to try, as if like, if I perish, like they're going to really care whether I tried or not. I mean, that's not going to be something that's going to be on the forefront of their thinking. But that was what drove me into this healing journey. And I still say to people today, you're healing whatever it might be from, whether it's alcoholism or sex addiction, drug addiction, food addiction, it eventually needs to come from you. Like at some point you have to want it, at some point in that process, but it doesn't have to be the catalyst. It doesn't have to be the thing that starts you. It really doesn't. Cause I just went down the path for a completely different reason than myself. But then I found myself in that path.
That's amazing. So during your therapy, because I know a lot of people who go through years of therapy and there's not advancement, there's not improvement. Yeah. So what was it so special about this therapist? Or maybe you can help others, like maybe what they should be looking for.
Well, I had a lot of therapists who I'm sure were fantastic, that I just didn't connect with, because it was the kind of therapy where at that time, like I mentioned, I was really sick. So I was in a kind of emergency mode. I had been in some in and outpatient and different, therapies that didn't work at all. So the kind of the one-on-one, the one that my mom had made an intervention with, and a couple of others. And they were just the therapists that believed in, diving extraordinarily deep into your childhood from the moment you sit down. And they would sit across me with their yellow legal pad and their pen and just be writing excessive notes. And first of all, it's like, it makes you feel really defenseless when you're pouring something out and someone is just writing a book on the other side, because you're just like, what are you writing? Like, and if you're a doctor, are you not smart enough to remember what I'm saying from sentence to sentence? Like I feel like we should be in this together, and I'm pouring my heart out, and you should just be looking at me, and we should be on this. So those were just really uncomfortable and unsettling, and I just never could get anywhere. So this therapist, I actually found her in the back of an ad of the LA Weekly at a coffee shop. And it was a little teeny tiny ad that said she was going to be speaking in the basement of a bookstore, Borders bookstore, on fear. And I had issues with that were intertwined into my eating disorder. I just thought this would be really interesting to go. So I went to hear her speak, and I don't even remember what she said at that period, the time that really connected with me. And I went up and asked if she did private sessions, and she said yes. So we got working, and she went in, she did a couple touches on my childhood in the first couple of sessions. And then she just stopped it. She said, okay, I've got enough. Cause I said, I have to get to work now. Like, I'm not doing a year of my childhood. Like, I'm sick now. We can revisit it. And she's like, I got you. I don't even really, and probably literally about a year later, we went into my childhood. I mean, it took a long time to get there, but so her method, she's a meditation therapist, and her method was a mixture of action-oriented meditation. So what that what that really is, I mean, and of course we spent hours talking too, and I had an anger stick where I would, release from it. She had a lot of like activity things that would help me to release a lot of what I was holding in. I still have the anger stick. It's like this really long towel, right, with rubber bands all around it. You would beat the floor like you were trying to, kill the floor. But she basically, by that point that I had gotten with her, I was actively practicing anorexia and bulimia. So big disaster. Wow. And so what she basically, this is just an example. She had me go to the store to buy little stickers, little blue dot stickers that you would use as like a teacher's assistant or something, right? So the little just blue dot stickers. And she had me go around the house and put them on places that would either be triggering to my eating disorder or places that I would go if I was going to practice my eating disorder, or if I was going to practice a binge. So the toilet, the refrigerator, the freezer, a couple of other places. And the only rule was, when I saw that blue dot, when I came face to face with the blue dot, I had to stop, sit down, and identify the pain or the hole, whatever it might be, the hollowness, the agony in my body where I was feeling it, whether it was my throat or my chest or my gut, right, or my toe, wherever that was, identify where it was. And then I had permission to continue on. I could go ahead and binge and purge. Well, for some reason, that just, the fact that she gave me permission to go ahead with practicing my eating disorder, I was like, well, we're going to get along great. This is going to be, because, remember in the beginning, I'm not really thinking I'm going to get better. And I was like, oh, if this gets me a little better, then, so, but as you can imagine, over time, I stuck with her and stuck with it. I finally, that took, probably 4 or 5 months, but where I got to a point where I would see the blue dot. And of course I was sitting down, and now I was meditating for 20 minutes, like that, the first time I did, I'd be like, pain here, binge, I wouldn't even sit down. She told me I wouldn't even do that. But we got to where I would be able to sit down on the kitchen floor and meditate for a pretty long period of time, identify all sorts of things that were going on in my body, breathe through them, move them out. And I would open my eyes, and then suddenly one day I thought, I don't think I'm going to binge. And that was the turning point. And of course I binged after that, right? Like it wasn't this like, and now everything's fine. Right. But that is what started happening. So then less and less and less did I want to practice either restriction or binging. So it was an active style meditation, right? So
yeah, it's
very cool.
Becoming disenchanted with this destructive habit. So
yes.
you're bringing awareness and mindfulness to what's going on. Are you familiar with Dr. Judd Brewer?
Mm-mm.
So Dr. Judd Brewer is a good friend of mine. He's an addictive psychiatrist. He wrote a book called The Craving Mind. He's also plant-based, by the way. And I think he's been on my podcast like 5 or 6 times. I have 2 extra recordings I need to get up and running for him. And I actually went to New York about a month ago and filmed a webinar with him. And I started following his work a couple of years ago when I had a patient who, young, 21, 22, and just came to me. He goes, Dr. Marbas, I have this intense anxiety I've never had. He goes, nothing happened, no trauma, but he was just like caught in this worry cycle. And Judd has created 3 different apps. One's called Eat Right Now, one's on unwinding anxiety, and the other one's Craving to Quit. And what was interesting, I was like, you know what? We talked about medication, of course. I said, but I really need you to use this app. Like, it's homework. Like, this is your doctor saying this is what you have to do. And he really took it to heart. And 30 days later, we can measure objectively someone's anxiety. He went from high anxiety to normal in 30 days, just the app. He refused to take the medicine. And I was like, it's the most incredible, but it's exactly what you're doing. You're bringing mindfulness to the moment. You're just not just going with these physical sensations and cravings and just doing it. You're not a victim to it. Your mind can actually control that. Once you're aware of it, you become disenchanted with whatever you thought the reward was. You're like, that reward is actually not that great. So I think it's a great story and example. That's fantastic.
Yeah, maybe you end up I feel like I'm starting to bridge the gap between that moment and then how I actually feel after a binge, which you just can't even go there, before that work and that therapy. Like, it's all about the moment of the binge and feeding the endless hole that lives inside you that'll never be filled by food, clearly. or alcohol, right? Or whatever it
Right.
might be. And it was kind of a bridge to go, oh, I know what's coming after
Right.
that. And I no longer want to sort of
Right.
sign up for that.
That's incredible. So how did you figure out what the hole was and how did you fill it?
Um, well, I mean, there were some layers of what had been going on in my life. I mean, it really did. I really did start to have to work on, major fear and self-loathing and control issues. Like that's how it
Mm,
started, was that I
right.
was not in control of what I had been in control of since I was like 5 years old, or what I thought I was.
Mm,
It was unraveling, that mostly, and
yeah.
I still have some, but it's so much better. I mean, it's, now I have therapy for other things. Because it's like a journey, right? Like that, some of that, I let go a lot of a lot of control, a
Yeah.
lot. But I think it was really, it was that, it was just not having a firm grip of who I was and what I was going to become. I think,
Right.
and then just being able to let go of that and taking this amazing ride that we're on planet
Mm-hmm.
Earth, and
Mm-hmm.
letting that journey unfold, which is what ended up happening. Which nobody in a million years, especially including me, would have thought that would have been that part of my story too. But I only got there by just letting go and
Wow.
saying, let's see where this
Let
goes.
let's go for a ride of a
Yeah.
lifetime,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 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 Which you don't know in the beginning it's going to be a ride of a lifetime at
No,
all.
not at all. But it's interesting, just a little caveat. I've had patients explain to me that fear factor, that anxiety, that they actually
Yeah.
find some other habit like anger. Like I had a patient literally tell me, she goes, I have this anxiety and fear about a certain situation. She goes, I just get angry and that's my control. And I can see that for me, it's worry about my children. There's a reason for that.
Sure.
One of my
Sure.
children was almost kidnapped, and I was there and witnessed, and we got her back. But it was like
Oh
that.
my God.
Oh, let me tell you, there's there's a lot there. But whenever now she's a grown up, I can't. But I
Oh
worry.
my God.
But these apps, where you can find people, I'm addicted to. Where like she doesn't answer the phone, I'm like, okay, where are you? And it's an unhealthy
Wow.
thing. But it drove me to actually get trained in Krav Maga and Israeli just
I
self defense,
bet.
and went to the military. I was active duty. So these are things that you're exactly right. You seek other ways of the control, so you don't have to face the fear and live into it.
Seriously. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
how did this move? Now you're going through this and you're understanding and you're releasing that and you're going for this ride. Now you're just open to it. How did this move into the biking? Because this is a whole nother level. And then of course the plant-based diet. How did that all fit together?
Hmm. Well, I mean, so my therapist that saved my life is also the therapist that made the next 15 years of my life, because she's the one that suggested cycling, really. I mean, she basically, at the end of our journey together, like I was well, like I was so much better. And I was, able to be a participant in my own life by that point. And, you know, develop and maintain relationships and trust from people and work and those kinds of things. And so, she knew, I think when we first, from day one, that there was a competitive nature inside of me. Not really an athlete, like, because there wasn't so much, but just that sort of a competitive nature. And then just also just, I had, part of my anorexia was definitely over exercise disorder. So I had many years of, spending, hours and hours and hours in the gym on the Stairmaster and the elliptical and the treadmill, just like hammering away, trying to disappear. So she had this, idea that she wanted me to find some kind of, exercise. I don't even think she called it a sport, just like an exercise or some kind of movement that I could, enjoy and move in a healthy way again, which I hadn't been able to do for so long. And I met out in Los Angeles by this point. I had moved from New York City, but she was, the whole time I was with her, was out in LA. So maybe I've been out there for, about 3 years by this point. And she said, I want you to just select something, you know, as in not the elliptical in the gym, but something maybe outside or anything, you know, volleyball, swimming, you know, whatever it might be. And so that's when I chose cycling. I was like, well, what about if I got a bike? Because it's, you know, sunny 365 days out here, and you could do it year round. And for some reason, I just thought, gosh, I just think it would be so freeing to ride up PCH and into the Santa Monica Mountains and just have that wind in my face and just that freedom. I was loving the freedom that I was feeling from myself, from the trappings of myself that I had been behind bars for so long. So that's how that's how it started. She was like, I love it. It's perfect. Cycling, go get a bike. So, you know, it's like crazy I'm really glad I picked cycling. I would not have made it to the Olympics in beach volleyball, I don't think. And it just, you know, there we were. And I just started riding up and down PCH and going into the mountains and loving every second of it. And then deciding I wanted to do something for good with my riding my bike, maybe 6 months in. So I signed up for the California AIDS ride, and San Francisco to LA in a week, you know, and you camp and stuff. They don't go the direct route. So it was about 700 miles because they go, you know, a different route that's not on the freeway the whole time. And
Wow.
I did that and finished that. And there were some, you know, some dudes, because they were all dudes at the front of the pack who had been kind of hanging with that week. And they were like, you know, this, I think you might have some talent here. Like, this isn't normal that you just started this 6 months and you're riding at the front of the pack with us. Like, what, you know, I mean, I was dying right at the front of the pack, but I have a really high suffering personality. And I just love that feeling of pushing myself every day to like the nth degree. So on their suggestion, I was like, well, I don't know what to, you know, maybe they're like, maybe you should try a race, like get a license or something and like so anyway, yeah, I just didn't stop. That is really,
Wow.
honestly, the story to the Olympics is like, I just didn't stop.
Wow.
I should have many times, but
Right.
it just, I was intrigued with it. And I was just like, so amazed that now I'm, you know, I eventually became a professional and was on the US national team and was traveling all over Europe racing my bike.
Wow.
Like a anorexic drug addict that was a complete loser, and there was like no end in sight to be able to actually do anything with her life. And nobody would have thought I would have. Maybe my mom and dad still had hope, but everybody else was like, oh my gosh, you know, you're like a wash up. And just having this experience I just couldn't believe that it was unfolding. And so I had a really great respect and appreciation for it. You know, I think
Right.
that's one of the things that kept me in it. It was like, this is just the coolest, wildest ride that I could have ever imagined. And I want to just see where we go with it.
That's incredible. So what do you think about your experience with the eating disorder and the cocaine habits and this feeling of wanting to disappear? How did that actually help maybe boost you to get through those tough times? Because I watched that documentary, the Personal Gold, and I'm sorry, but you guys, I look at that and go, no, I couldn't do it. I mean, you guys are crying, you've worked out so hard, and that was just the practice.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah,
no.
No.
Like, so what is it?
I think you do what you do, right? Like you did that when you know, defended your daughter, and you did that in medical school, and you're doing that now, doing something that most people think is ridiculous, right? Like our plant-based practices,
Right.
completely going against the status quo,
Yeah.
because you believe in it and you love it. And it's just, I think people, you know, they tend to look at, you know, the Olympics are like this, you know, has this whole aura, and it's like this amazing thing. And yeah, there's not a large percent of the population that has gone to the Olympics. I recognize that, but it's just complete commitment to your craft and a hell of a lot of suffering and hard work and being willing to lose more than you're going to win, which is everybody's journey that ever does anything that comes out the other side victorious, right? Like it's the same journey. It just happens that it's like, oh, the Olympics, which I have all the respect in the world for. I mean, you know,
Right.
I do,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
I love, but it's like is not really unique is what I'm saying. You know,
Right.
it's
a different
yours.
arena.
Yeah. It's just, you just kept going. You know, like you just kept fighting. You know, it's like something worth fighting for. And there were loads of opportunities to quit. And then you just didn't for whatever reason each time.
So it's the perseverance. It's the marathon.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
for sure.
as you were going through that, and so at what point, because it was what, 3 years before you were in the Olympics that you actually went to a plant-based diet, what was this transition to the plant-based diet? What was that
Yeah.
catalyst for you?
Yeah. It was like, yeah, it was like 2.5. It was like
2009.
early 2010-ish. So,
Okay.
because I remember where I was.
That,
Because for the longest time before this movement, it's like, I didn't really know that I didn't have a date. You know how people have their date. No, I was like, I don't know. Then I had to go back and remember where because I was in Minnesota and I was at a race, and then remembering the team I was on, I was like, okay, that was with Jazz Apple. Okay. Yes. It was right around early 2010, like the spring when and then, so, um, it was, is 100% ethics, which, isn't revealed in the Game Changers, right? They're doing this story, and it just, not that they're not trying to tell the right story, but that's just not the story. Right.
right.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole. I don't know if you want to get into, I mean, the ethics are the ethics, which just at some point I just became, hyper aware of what goes on behind closed doors in our agricultural food system, and the route that an animal has to take to make it to my plate. And like so many of us, all of a sudden I'm completely seeing the world through a different lens. I started going down the rabbit hole very quickly, like uncovering, understanding, researching, like I couldn't get enough. Like, what the hell is going on? Am I in a movie right now? And, once you go down deep enough, you can't ever come back out. Like, you can't ever unknow any of that. And I just felt like it made me feel really strong to stand up for a belief system that I said I'd had my entire life, which was that I deeply loved other species besides just Homo sapiens. I had like I said, I had horses, but dogs and hamsters and gerbils and rabbits and fish. I mean, I literally had I had a little farm at my house, much to my parents' chagrin, because the hamsters bred to a degree that was not okay in our basement. It's probably, yeah, that's not okay. But so I was never living in alignment with that truth. That was, so when I opened my eyes to it, I thought, wow, you have to, now you're going to be living in a completely different way. And this is going to be interesting because you're going to be changing your diet, like pretty much a 180. And you are trying to make an Olympic team at 38. Sweet. This is going to be great.
I couldn't see it as a better alignment of the stars, right? So you have a journalism investigative spirit. You've come to understand mindfulness and understanding your body and desires, and you align your beliefs. You're authentic, and now you're an older athlete. And what a great point to actually eat the diet that's going to keep you on track and recover so quickly. So how was that experience with others that didn't understand? Like, were other people like, "Are you crazy? What are you doing?" Or
I mean, it's genius now, but it wasn't genius. I didn't know it was genius at the
10
time,
years
right?
ago.
Right. It's like, now we're like, oh my God, wow, you're so clairvoyant. But no, my teammates were cool. Like, they were on their own journey, right? It's like, I don't think they really cared what I was eating. And plus they're just cool people. Like, they're still just my closest peeps, even though we don't talk all the time, just it was, since it was a team event, like they're people in my life that I knew I wanted to go to battle with, and I would go to any battle with any of them now. I had some coaches that were, it was more the coaches and the dietitians that were like, this is bananas. Like, you've lost your mind, this is not going to be doable. Right. Cause I think why they were so perplexed and concerned was I was pretty new to track cycling. Like, I spent almost my entire career on the road for a good 10 years. Yeah, about 10 years, 10, 11 years. And so I had switched over to track cycling just as another, whim that this is how my life unfolds, because I was intrigued by it. I knew that I probably had some talent in that discipline, in that distance, based on how I was performing on the road, in that type of distance. And then I was absolutely, still am to this day, scared to death of it because of the banking is 44 degrees. And I had been asked to be on the track a couple of times in my road career, and I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't even ride up the balustrade. Like it just petrifying to me. And I had started figuring out, that I loved pushing through greatest fears. And so I was now needed to build an extraordinary amount of muscle in my glutes and my hamstrings and my hips that I didn't have on the road. I mean, I didn't have all that muscle tissue, those muscle fibers, because our event is, and track bikes and track cycling, they're fixed gears, no brakes. And our event specifically starts from a standing start. You've got one gear. And so you have to start in a monster gear because it has to be big enough so that when you get up to speed, we traveled almost 60 kilometers an hour average at our Olympic final. That's a huge gear. And for the geeks out there, we rode a 102 at the Olympics. So it's massive. And to get that off the start, you have to have a huge amount of muscle mass to be able to move that gear. So that's, I think, why they were freaked out, right? Because everyone still is back then, and I think and generally in sport, right? And that's what the Game Changers was trying to unravel, still of the belief system that strength, true muscle fibers, muscle tissues are only grown from animal foods. So that's why they were I mean, I think if I was like, oh, I'm going to be a ballerina or a gymnast, maybe the nutritionist would have been like, all right, well, they don't really eat anyway, so good luck with your plants. But they were like, this is really going to be a challenge now that it wasn't, as we know, but that's where they're still in that mindset. The U.S. Olympic Committee, it's like the meat and dairy industry still have them like completely like, woo, that it's that it's animal foods that grow muscle tissue. It's not protein. It's
interesting
animal
how
foods.
Marketing's affected that, right? Because we all grew up thinking milk does a body good, right? So, which leads me to the question. So as you're doing this training, were you yourself a little concerned? I mean, like, what were the things that you implemented to make sure that you did have the right, and I mean, number of calories are an issue, and you're building this strong muscle. What did you find? Or did you like, wow, this transition just was so easy? Was there any worries?
I mean, I did find it kind of easy in terms of being able to find the foods. But I don't know. I think when you're living with like real soulful, deep conviction, there just wasn't any fear. And I honestly, I mean, there were a few times where I was like, in the beginning, maybe they're right. Maybe I won't be able to build this much muscle tissue. And I just thought to myself, well, then I won't be able to build this much muscle tissue. And maybe that means I don't go to the Olympics. And I never thought I would go to the Olympics anyway. So this is all a big gift. So, I mean, oh, well, I had that almost like, it's not worth eating animals again. Like I can't now, after I know all this, I can't now start that for what? For a well-known sporting event like that I'm going to make it. It just didn't align. So because I felt that way about it, it was just like, I just did it. Right. And then I just thought, I'm not going to worry about what's going to happen. I'm just going to do it because this is the only way that I'm going to be able to live with myself now. And then we'll see what happens. And I hope it comes out. I had a little bit of a sense. I mean, I had hope, I guess, not a sense, just hope that doing good would bring good. Right. And that this would not be the one thing that takes me down from not being able to go. But,
right. And you saw that it did. I loved part of it was your recovery, right? So for the athletes who are listening, why is that so important that you can recover faster?
Yeah, well, there's a couple layers to it. So yeah, my recovery was better. And I think people kind of are used to hearing that a lot now, but my repeatability between my efforts also increased and enhanced, and my output increased greatly. And you saw this scene in the Game Changers. I mean, I was doing a lot of work on the inverted leg sled because I had to build a lot of muscle, right? Where I told you I did. So that was something that I was pushing like around 300-ish pounds times 60 reps times 5 sets. And, wow. As I tapered right before the Olympics, so that period of time that I had then gone plant-based, I was at 585 pounds. So just shy of 600 pounds times 60 reps times 5 sets. So the growth of the muscle mass that took place on plants was pretty extraordinary. I mean, that's
Wow.
that's so much weight. I mean, it's 5 plates aside. No, it's 6 plates aside. 12, yeah, in the bar. That the dudes in the gym were like, thought something was seriously going on. I mean, like nice steroids you're on, because like that's just that does not equal that. So there was an amazing just transformation in that alone, which I think is something that people have a really hard time connecting. Like, I think the recovery thing makes some sense, like logically, even people that are eating animals, like, okay, yes. Yeah. And I mean, the ones that want to admit that animal foods are inflammatory, but I think they almost think like from like, I don't know, just a processing digestive standpoint, like, oh yeah, it would just, maybe you have a little bit more energy if you're eating like tons of nutrients and fruits and vegetables and everything, but I can't eat those all the time. So that's not, but your blood flow greatly is enhanced, and the repair process that happens in your blood system, right? And eating so much nitric oxide, right? It's just like this just super speed of blood flow, and your blood flow bringing those nutrients back to the working muscles so much faster than it did before, which is repairing them at a greater rate. So the recovery overnight and then recovery between efforts. I mean, I got to where I was like able to produce efforts with so much less recovery than even my teammates were able to. And that was a big part of it, because I was, like I said, recovery was a big deal. It always is to an athlete, but I was a bit older, so that was kind of a race for me, right, to be able to recover like the 10 years younger people.
It's phenomenal. So now, because I see your other teammates, and they're seeing how you're eating and seeing this amazing progress. Did any of them ask you for advice, or did any of them turn to a plant-based diet?
Yeah, one of them now is. Okay. Yes. So I think, just like I can understand and imagine, and exactly as the dietitian nutrition, during the journey, it was not interesting to them to like change their diet that they had been doing since the beginning of their careers, right? Like that was not going to be a good time for them to like, hey, let's see what Dotsie's eating. Like that was like, you are really with fire. But so no, during it, but afterwards, yes, lots of questions, lots of inquiries, and one of them is, I'd say she's 95% plant-based, and won't touch dairy milk. She's lactose intolerant. We figured that out a while ago, but she had been inside the the bars of the U.S. Olympic Committee since she was 16 is when she started cycling. And so she had been so inundated with these messages that we need cows' boob juice to recover as humans, and was just, I get it, right? Like I was almost completely inundated and believe in that, in my belief system. And I hadn't been inside of that nearly as long as she had. So I understood how she was afraid to change that, even though it gave her stomach cramping and stomach bloating and stomach pain every time she had any dairy food. I mean, she just has clear lactose intolerance, right? So, but she's gotten, almost like a lease on life back in that realm anyway, of not being in pain when you eat, now. And she loves it and shares it with a lot of people. That's
Sarah, right? That must be Sarah.
No, that's Jenny. It's Jenny.
Oh, Jenny's the 16.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I know Sarah's super young too, and Sarah's interested in it. Sarah's a massive animal lover, and she's on her own journey with it. She gets it. It takes a while for some people, but yeah.
Absolutely. No, for sure. All 3 of my kids have stuck to the plant-based diet, and my husband. So it's been a good thing, because I came overnight.
Wow.
15, 16, 18-year-olds said 8 years ago, we're doing this. And my husband's
we're doing this.
And they're like, okay.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh.
They knew better. I'm not a short order cook, so they just would eat what I fed. So, but
right.
As you are going through this, and you did this amazing thing, and you got to go to London, and you really were the underdogs. You brought home a medal after, was it 20 years, right? Before there was a cycle. Wow, incredible. So during this time, there's a lot you could talk about there, but now we're talking about Switch for Good, because you're talking about dairy. What was the idea and inspiration to like, we're going to push this in front of people and, air this in on TV and opportune time. So tell us a little bit about that.
It just was really born out of my frustration and sadness, really, and of the experience that I had as an athlete, and as so many athletes have that are now, moving over to plant-based diets, that are in that journey of going to the Olympics, and are, kind of fed the propaganda by the Milk Pep Board, who is the United States Olympic Committee's main sponsor. I mean, that's
Wow.
just what it is. It's money and follow the dollar. And so it was just born out of that frustration and sadness and deep desire to tell the truth. That's what really, just at the end of the day, I thought, we have to stand up. And who's we? I don't know. I'm alone on my couch when I, thought of this, and I'm watching a commercial that is a milk commercial that is some of the milk commercials that they made leading into the 2018 Winter Olympic Games in Pyeongchang. And I'm like, we have to tell the truth, and we have to say something, and we have to stand up and say, no, this is not how all athletes recover. Or is it even food for a human? No. And why are we pushing this on athletes and people? It was just a desire to kind of right the wrong, is how we really got started. And now we've gone in all sorts of different directions. And, I think we'll be around for a very long time, but it was just started from that experience, and that fervor, and that place to say, stand up and say, no, that's not the truth.
Who were the first people that you contacted? So people who are inspired to want to do something, but they're like, I'm one person, you had the Olympic, you're an athlete already, but so how do you start and create that team that will help you build this? Because you can't do anything like that alone, for sure.
Right. No kidding. Absolutely not. I really the idea came to me literally sitting on the couch watching this dairy commercial, and it was during Olympic trials for 2018. And this idea came, like, what if we could put a commercial on the closing ceremonies of this Olympic Games, which, at that point is like 6 weeks away, 5 weeks away, right? Because the Olympics are only 2.5 weeks. That's a great idea. So it just started as that idea. I just got a hold of a few people that I had met in the movement, because by this point I'm doing a lot of, I'm doing leafletting, I'm doing speaking, I'm doing that. I'll do anything any of the animal rights organizations wants. That, just I'm just in it to win it. So I just call some people that I know, and a production team and some funders, and I have this idea and this marketing team, and I don't know why. I don't know why they all said yes. I still, to this day, I'm like, you guys were lunatics to say, oh, good idea, let's put this together in this really short period of time, buy all the airtime on NBC, which is going to be $1 gazillion, and put this commercial on. But I don't know, they just all said yes. So then I called every Olympian that I could think of that, is either dairy free or doesn't eat any animal foods. And I mean, there's not a lot of us yet at this point, right? I didn't have like this. But so it was Seba Johnson, and it was Rebecca Soni, so 6-time Olympic medalist in swimming. Wow. She's amazing. It was Kendrick Ferris, who's in the Game Changers. It was Malachi Davis. It's myself, and I think, is that 6 something? Anyway, there was 6 people. There were 6 of us, 6 Olympians in there. What was really cool was it was I think I'm missing somebody, but it was 6 Olympians, but from 4 different countries.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it wasn't just all like U.S. athletes. So that was kind of cool that it was like that. Yeah, we put it on, and then, Milk got it pulled. We made it like, halfway across the country, and then they started seeing it, and then they called NBC and, follow the dollar again. So, our beginnings, we started with a fight, right? We put a fight up, and they gave us a fight back, and now we're fighting to the bitter end, because we're going to be around for a long time. But we've changed so much of our approach and our rhetoric, recognizing that, we can't just yell at people and have this angry approach to what we do, right? Like to be able to bring people in and educate them and inspire them and advocate on behalf of eating, plants and not animals foods and dairy foods. That's just an entirely different approach that we have to take. So so
it's the same idea as a doctor who's trying to sell the plant-based diet to a patient. I just have to be a better marketer for this plan than what they're currently doing. And so, but it's not hard because everybody gets better, eats a plant-based diet, at least to some degree.
Right.
And you just have to pull different levers, right? You just have to figure out what those are. Absolutely. It's incredible. So you have two different things or nonprofits that you run. So you have Switch for Gold, and then you have the other one, the Compassion Champs. What's that about?
No. So long before Switch for Good came about, when I was just doing stuff in this movement after London, and I had my business was in sports technology consulting, but I had this you have to have a few failures before you have a success. So Compassion Champs was just, it was just an idea I had behind, like, everyday champions, sort of standing up for compassion, right? And just because we're, bold and brave and winning medals doesn't mean that we can't live our life with compassion and empathy and love. So it was cool. I was just funding it myself. We did a few interesting things, but it didn't really take off on any big scale. So I'm not doing that anymore. But Switch for Good did. So yeah, awesome. It's the same message. It's just just this different things work better than others. So
different packaging.
Yeah.
That is, but it's cool though, because everything you do is living your truth and being authentic and aligning your values with your actions, which always brings good. So what is your next plan? So you had this amazing cycling career, and now you've been doing Switch for Good. Where do you see your future going as you move into, entering into middle ages? I understand that very well myself. Where is that? I'm waiting for grandkids, but I'm not hopeful. But anyway, so where do you see yourself?
You're bound to get some of them out. You got 3, so come on, you'll get 1 or 2.
They're good looking kids. Let me know if you know anyone. I can show you a picture later. So you let me know.
I just might. I know some younger up and coming athletes.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm 100% focused on Switch for Good. I'm the executive director of that, and we have a really decent budget, and we have all sorts of different ways that we're advocating. We have an entire summer coming out with 3 more commercials on NBC that's going to rock the boat a lot. We're also working in policy and working to get dairy off the U.S. dietary guidelines. We have extensive education programs, and we do a lot of educating and work with big ball sport teams, which we'll continue to do and continue to grow. And it's now during this COVID-19, no one can go anywhere, but we do it with the Clippers. We'll be starting with the Dodgers when we're out of this. So I see that as one space where we'll really become the go-to experts. I mean, there's so many more immediate you notice so much more immediately how you feel different when you drop dairy. Meat takes a little time, right? Like we know that it's inflammatory, but it's rare that you find somebody that's intolerant to meat, right? But there's 65% of the world's population is completely intolerant to digesting the lactose and dairy, and it's much higher in ethnicities of color, and it is a substance that is pushed highly, and it's making most of us really sick. So it's in those sports teams. I mean, starting with dairy is something that it makes sense to them. They have heard it's maybe the message, and they want to learn more, and they want to understand. We wouldn't be able to get in the door if we were a vegan organization. I mean, they're just not ready for the whole thing, but they get the dairy part, and they understand. I mean, the Clippers, their entire team, are of African descent. They've one white guy. So about 85% of them, this is making them sick and inhibiting their repair and the recovery because of its inflammatory nature. So it's yeah, that whole journey is unfolding as we grow Switch for Good, and we're in the midst of hiring an operations director and a Marcom director, and so yeah, we're here. We're here to stay, to share this message and to help people change over from dairy foods to plants.
I agree 100%, because if I can get someone to drop the dairy, the rest of it just kind of falls in place. Like I can walk them through it, but the dairy is huge. It's so huge. Amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It really, really is. And you know, if we were to mention the ethical perspective, it's by far the most sick and sadistic of all the animal foods. They're all super twisted with what we've done, but that one just it's just totally mind-blowing when you go into the understanding of what goes on.
And it boggles my mind too, but how entrenched in our belief system or ability to just walk by with blinders on. Because when my daughter was little, so she's 26 now, when she was very verbal, 2 or 3 year old. We went to a grocery store, and there's, in the grocery store, there's lobsters that are still alive, but they have them in the water. And she's like, "Mommy, why are there lobsters in the grocery store?" Like, she could already question that environment.
What is going on? Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, "Well, it's because people eat them." She goes, "People eat them?" Like, it really just dawned on her, like this was her death. Like when you first understand death and the permanency of it. And she's just like, it really confused her. And she was upset about that for weeks. And I don't know why I didn't, back then make that connection myself. Like, it was just like moments in time that I was giving an opportunity, and you walk by it. Like, I feel like doors open and you have to be ready for that message. And it's like,
you do. You have to have so much patience with people with what you do. And it's sometimes it's hard, but I always I ate animals and animal foods for 35 years. Like, I mean, that's a really long time. And there were probably not a time where there wasn't some kind of animal product on my plate. Like, I never just ate plants at even in meals. So it's like literally so it's just, I take myself back there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I loved animals. I respected animals. I wanted to have animals, and I was eating them. Mm-hmm. And it's just trying to go back to that space every single time, because people deserve grace. They deserve compassion, and they deserve love at whatever journey, at whatever speed of journey they want to take, or not at all. Lots of friends that are like, that's your thing, and you're just like, oh my God.
You're nice. I actually am a bit more of a, we're sick. You're going to die. Let's talk right now. And there's no time to wait. So when I see them, like, listen, if I don't tell you this is where you're headed. Diabetes is, so I use that MD. I was like, this is really serious, but it's really funny to have when you have people who shut the door, but you're like, so why are you shutting the door? And, I'm going to keep knocking. And they're like, okay, I've had patients take a year, and then you finally say something. So you just can't give up. That social contagion is so important, because you never know.
You're right. You're so right. I know.
Incredible. Absolutely. I'm sure we could talk about that forever, and I've taken so much of your time, and I so appreciate
I've enjoyed it.
Is there any last bit of advice maybe you would like to share with someone who's on that teetering edge? You're like, I'm an athlete, I'm in high school or college athlete, and what is that one bit you would like to encourage them?
They will be better. They will be stronger, they will be faster, and they will beat their teammates to the line. And so if that's not encouraging to every athlete, that is the truth. It really, really is. I have not ever seen it go the other way.
Absolutely.
I'll let you know if I do. And then there would be a first, and then I wouldn't really be able to say that, but I have not ever seen it go the other way when athletes move over to this. But I think even though that is enticing and exciting to hear and think, okay, I'm going to be faster and better. I'm going to lean into it, give it a try. I really encourage people to start uncovering what their why is. And it doesn't have to be specifically the ethics of the animals. It doesn't have to be that. It can be just something to do with your health. Maybe you have a family history, which is really not necessarily a family history of heart disease. It's a family history of bad diets, right? That is that. But some things truly are genetic. If they're, and you want to turn that around, maybe you want to be an example for your 70-year-old dad who has type 2 diabetes and hypertension and high blood pressure and high cholesterol. And you just want to show him that it's possible and that it's delicious. There's so many varieties of whys in there, but for it to really be profound and something that you do want to stick with, because it's not, to me, it's not a diet at all. It is just this remarkable, freeing, totally loving and wonderfully flavorful lifestyle. So as you're going down the journey, athletes, start looking for your why for this, because that's what really sustains you, for sure.
I think that's beautifully said. You're just asking them to critically think about their being and existence and choices. Yeah. So, but I agree. It's loving. So when we go to our plant-based conferences, like the Plant Nutrition Project, there's 1,000 doctors like us. It is the most fun than any other conference I've been. Like, you people are just different. You're happy and glowing.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
It's a different level of energy that you'll ever meet, is when you're surrounded by people who believe and love and want people to be well. It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. And the doctors themselves look so healthy and glowing.
It's a different,
it's a different deal, right, than the other medical conferences you used to go to, because most of those people are not suggesting to their patients because they don't want to do it. I mean, that's the end of the day, and it's just like, oh, the doctor that like looks like he's going to keel over in this conversation because he's so out of breath. It's like, I don't think I want to do what they're doing.
Oh, I can tell you so much about that. It's incredible. There's interesting studies on how doctors who exercise more likely talk to their doctor about exercising. They eat plant-based. It's just so much. But again, I just so enjoy talking to you. Maybe someday I can get you back on and we can dive into something else. You're a blast. So
that would be fun. This was super fun. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we got here, and thanks for being so loving and patient with me.
Oh no, trust me. If anyone understands, I do. I am the world's worst.